creates unity. Your opportunity. Your opportunity. Your opportunity.
Marketing starts with market. So we are meant to be owning the market. We're meant to be the ones that are saying, this is where we're going to sell. This is where we're going to be successful. My priority would be like 80% on fixing the demand gen and 20% on like content and brand and trying to get that engine. We can attribute results to one channel and we end up becoming so focused on these results that we forget about what marketing are actually meant to be doing, which is, growing a market. Hide the money. So I would say, okay, I'm doing this brand campaign. I'm going to hide it. I'm not going to talk about it. Wait until I get some results and then I'll celebrate it.
Yeah.
That's good until things don't go the way you want them to go, or it's taking longer to see results, or you've had to sit down with a CFO and they're asking, why have you spent this money? We're really bad at naming things in marketing, and the fact that we call it long term scares everybody. All of us are now thinking, okay, you want to do all this stuff for the future, and I just want you to focus on today. I think what we need to get better at is explaining the connection to the longer term things we're doing, but how it's going to impact sales in a quarter, 2 quarters, 3 quarters, and start explaining, like tying those metrics together.
Hello and welcome to the WeMarketers Podcast. I'm Andrew and I'm happy to introduce my today's guest, Sam O'Brien, the VP of Marketing at Dealfront. Sam is an entrepreneurial marketing leader who's built a career by connecting the dots across product, UX, and growth. Sam, I'm happy that you found time to join me today and to speak about a very interesting topic that you raise on your blog on LinkedIn about broken marketing.
I'm happy to be here, and yeah, it's a tough topic, but definitely a fun one to dig into.
And to start our conversation, we have a lot of tools on the market, a lot of analytics tools, tracking tools, and so on. So they enable us to measure our results, meaning that marketing teams become too obsessed about numbers, about data, and about quick results. But at the same time, on the contrary, we have brand building. So what we should choose, long-term results or short-term results? Could you tell more about this?
I mean, we should choose both. But yeah, exactly that. I think what's happened, and I'm guilty of this. I've done it in my career, and it's definitely how I started out. Is we've got all these tools which we can attribute results to one channel, and we end up becoming so focused on these results that we forget about what marketing are actually meant to be doing, which is growing a market. So taking a subset of a market and trying to grow that in the long term. So that's where I think the brand part comes in. And for me, I don't think, and there's books on it, I haven't got that one here, but there's the book Long and the Short of It, which talks about, you need to focus on long term and short term. And the combination of the both is actually where most companies grow. It's not focusing on one or the other. You have to do a combination of both.
At the same time, when we start talking about long-term investments in brand, it is hard to deliver to stakeholders this idea that this will be important in the long term. How we can deal with this as marketers to show to management team really that we can drive value in the long term?
Yeah. Another call out here. So Mark Ritson mentioned this on a LinkedIn post himself, and he said that something along the lines of, we're really bad at naming things in marketing, and the fact that we call it long term scares everybody. All of us are now thinking, okay, you want to do all this stuff for the future, and I just want you to focus on today. Yeah. So I think what we need to get better at is explaining the connection to the the longer term things we're doing, but how it's going to impact sales in a quarter, 2 quarters, 3 quarters, and start explaining, like tying those metrics together. And for me, that's like the connecting of the dots. Is there's a lot of work we do which will not show up as a direct ROI. But if we see that the brand is getting stronger, we hear that it's being mentioned more in sales calls, direct traffic's going up, the sales conversion rates improve. So we can prove that, this long-term marketing focus will have leading indicators along the way. The ROI might not be there, but we can definitely start measuring that, hey, things are definitely working. Like, let's keep doing this and see how far it goes.
And how can we deal with this pressure from management team on a good ROI for us? What's your experience here? Because this is a very tough thing with this.
Yeah, I always say I've done this the wrong way in the past, and I've done it better ways. I'm not going to say I've found the perfect way yet. The wrong way is I used to I'd hide the money. So I would say, okay, I'm doing this brand campaign. I'm going to hide it. I'm not going to talk about it. Wait until I get some results and then I'll celebrate it.
Yeah.
That's good until things don't go the way you want them to go, or it's taking longer to see results, or you've had to sit down with a CFO and they're asking, why have you spent this money? So what I do now is I try and find as many leading indicators as possible. So again, like in the post you're referencing, I talked about the fact that we're looking at, is search impressions going up? Now, impressions are definitely a vanity metric. I'm not going to be able to convince the CFO to invest in impressions, but if impressions are going up and at the same time our direct traffic's going up, and the conversion rate between impressions and direct traffic stays the same, now I can say, okay, I'm growing the reach of the brand and people are converting to the website. So at least they're coming onto the website. And that's really like my first tick. Then because of like the Dealfront platform, we obviously have lead feeder. So we can identify, is it our ICP that's on the website? So, next tick is like we're driving more brand and they're reaching the website. And now I can see that they're my ICP. And by showing these like leading indicators, I'm able to buy a bit more time. Maybe it's another 2-3 months of the board feeling like we're moving in the right direction, that they're willing to wait until we see the MQLs or SQLs or whatever it is we're determining as success.
With companies like B2B consulting services, for example, where we have one client per month or one client per 2 months. So where is this term from the very first touch point to converting to client is very lengthy, I would say 6-12 months, something like that. And we need immediate leads right now. So it's a very tough thing to convince stakeholders here. Maybe you have some hacks how to deliver these messages.
Yeah, I've been in companies, and like what you go out and study when you're studying marketing and what you actually get to do when you join a company are very different. It's never quite as perfect as we want it to be. And again, funny because I remember studying like UX design and it was all about research. And then when I got a job, there was no research. You just did things. So it's kind of similar. And I think that's one of the things we have to realize is there may be better ways to do it, but in reality, we're not going to initially get to do it the better way. So the reason I say that is I think what the mistake people make is they go into a company, and let's say that if you were to join a company today and there's a demand gen problem, right? That there's not enough leads in the funnel, or there's not enough sales pipeline. And to your point, let's say you've got a 12 months sales cycle to focus on. My priority would be like 80% on fixing the demand gen and 20% on like content and brand and trying to get that engine going. But to stay in a job, you're going to have to drive demand. So I think you have to focus on getting the first thing working, the demand part working first. And once that's working, again, not completely neglecting the brand, but the more that the demand funnel starts working, the more you can then move up and start focusing more on the awareness layer and bringing more people in.
Mm.
But what I would say is, like, again, having noticed this, people get they get a bit frustrated if they don't get to do the brand part. And I think you just have to buy your time. You have to get into a position where people are a bit more comfortable that we're supplying enough demand, and then you can go and start creating more. Um,
Mhm.
and then the other thing I'd say is like connecting the marketing plan with a long-term business plan. So, if you're trying to go like 10 to 15 in 1 year, and then the next year you want to be at 22, and then, whatever, like 28 million in revenue, you need to have this plan which shows, okay, our penetration in the market is growing. And if you can map out the market, how you're going to grow the awareness within the market and translate that back into the 3-year plan, it suddenly becomes a lot more manageable for, again, a CFO, CEO to see this and think, right, now I get it. We may not see the reward today, but we do want to be there in 3 years, and this is how we're going to
Mhm.
get there.
Mhm. And one more interesting thing that you mentioned on your posts is that we as marketers trained management teams to think small in terms of these immediate results.
Yeah, I think it came from, I blame it on AdWords. There's probably other channels, but I just think what happened, and again, I've been in marketing for quite a while, so I was like at the dawn of AdWords and all these changes happening. And I think like we got excited that all of a sudden we could go to a CFO and say, "Oh, look, I put 10 grand here and I got 20 grand out." And the
Mhm.
CFO was like,
Mhm.
"Amazing, here's another 10 grand."
Mhm. Mhm.
So we liked the fact that we could show this instant ROI, whereas the
Mhm.
things we were doing in the past, it was a lot harder. Before I was like way back when I first started, was doing like trade shows, um, print magazines, all these kind of things. And we had no way of actually proving what we were doing was working other than have sales in the business gone up. And we weren't trying to connect the dots to why they were going up. So I honestly think we created the problem where we just enjoyed being able to report on the return of our investment. So we created this mindset with them that everything we do is going to be able to drive an ROI. And I have it's a common comment that comes up, and people I speak to, other marketers I speak to, like every channel is now held to this sort of PPC standard. And even if you're doing
Mhm.
SEO, it's like, in my experience of SEO, it has a pretty big halo effect. So you may get some direct conversions, but actually most of the conversions are happening later via PPC still or via direct. Um, so if you look at it with the lens of, I expect this page to bring this much money, you're going to cancel like your SEO agency or all the work you're doing. Whereas if you look at it as, okay, this is growing reach, I can see more people are coming onto the website, more people are converting either directly or later, then it starts to show how everything is connected. And yeah, we can't use this like PPC measurement for all the work we're doing.
And here tools like Dealfront come into play, right? Where people where we as a marketers can really see who is visiting our website, and we can show. And you made a great point that we can really go to management team and say that here we have data, here are profiles that are visiting our website, and we actually have results at this point, and they may convert in the future. If we zoom in a little bit into practice, what's your approach in marketing, personally yours? Like, what's more modern marketing looks like?
Mm, I love that question. That's so I've always thought of this as like it's an orchestration of multiple channels. And I think this is why, again, my approach now, and it has been for a little while, is to try and focus on a market. So if I can pick, let's just say, I don't know, I'm focused on Germany, um, like German manufacturing. That's something that we sell to at the moment. So I'm focused on Germany and manufacturing. Now, there's multiple ways I can reach those companies. And what I want to do is I want to have a view of my entire market, all the companies I could sell to, a view of how many fit into my ICP. And then over time, I want to watch that number go up. Like how many of them are visiting my website, how many are engaged with my content, how many are in my newsletter, and just watch the market grow and the awareness within. Then, if you can take that as something like repeatable, you've run these different channels and campaigns, and then you go and focus on the next market and you do the same playbook. Okay, these are the companies I'm going to go after. These are the channels I'm going to use to start warming the market up. Scale,
Mhm.
scale, scale. I think that's where, for me, what has been happening in marketing, and like I hear these sort of comments quite often, where you'll have a US company and they say, "We want to go to market in Europe." You know, we're
Mhm.
both
Mhm.
European. We know Europe is
Mhm.
there's multiple different languages, multiple different like
Yeah.
culture
Yeah.
ways,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we're trying to go too broad. So
Mhm.
I think we have to narrow it down, focus on that one market, growing that one market, and then the next one, then the next one, then the next one.
Mhm.
And honestly, this is how we operated at Ring Central, and we ended up, I mean, the company got to 2 point something billion while I was there. So
Mm.
very successful with that model.
Yeah. 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 And how do you choose markets for where to target? Because it's such a huge variety, and from my experience, we chose markets more like we have some experience here, we have some clients already operating here, and we try to um, dive into this market. What's your approach here?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of a lot of things. So obviously, you've got to take in your own knowledge. So again, being Dealfront, we were formerly EchoBot in Germany and Lead Feeder in Finland. So
Hmm.
we've got a competitive advantage there. A lot of
Hmm.
companies struggle to go to market in Germany. It's a very local-led market. They like people on the ground. So instantly, it's like a tick box. We're obviously going to focus on Germany because that's hard for our competitors. But when we're exploring other markets, it's a case of like, who are the competitors there? Where have we been winning deals? Or where is there already an organic demand for our
Hmm.
solution?
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
do use organic a lot actually to start seeing that there's for instance, we see an increase in France. Okay, let's explore that in a little bit more
Hmm.
detail. But then it comes down to like, how big is the market? If I've got my ICP well defined, is there a big enough pool of people to go and market to,
Hmm.
or is it too small for me to entertain at the moment? Um, and like the combination of all these factors, it's very much working with product marketing. If you get all these factors right, then it should give you like, these are my primary markets, secondary, tertiary. So you can start like building your plan of, these are the ones I'm focusing on in 2025. If successful, 2026 we'll start adding in these ones, and you've got the roadmap already there. And then what I like about that roadmap is you can start being a little bit strategic and finding partners, for instance. So let's say again, we want to go and start selling in France, and we think in 2026, France is going to be our focus. Well,
Hmm.
actually, right now, we can go out and start recruiting some partners and seeing if partners can build some traction for our product. And if they can, then it's a really good sign that we'll be able to do more when we go full on focusing in that market.
Who are these partners? They're like people or companies.
Little bit of everything. So I mean, for us specifically, we will have like agencies working with us. They're promoting our solution. They're
Hmm.
working with
Hmm.
their customers, as well as like influencers, if you will,
Hmm.
like content
Hmm.
creators. So that's a really nice way to go to market. Previously, I was in the affiliate space as well, and actually, that's a good way to go to market as well. If you find some good affiliates,
Hmm.
go and work with them, test the market out. I think affiliates is completely underutilized for testing new markets.
Yeah, yeah. And okay, once we defined market, what's next?
Sit back and count the money. No, I think then you've got to get into activating the market. So again, if you've got a good product marketing team and you can like find your competitive edge, what's your USP? Has it changed market to market? Work that part out. And then I'm going to be looking at like, again, is there market specific SEO content I can create, or specific keywords I can create? I'm still going to be looking at AdWords and getting things like that running, testing some, I mean, at least the branded stuff to start with, but building out more generic campaigns. And then for me, it's going to be a case of like I've defined my markets, I've got my list then of target companies, so I'm going to bring them into different campaigns and start, warming them up via maybe it's LinkedIn adverts, maybe we're doing IP adverts, maybe we're doing just an outbound sequencing thing, whatever it is, but we're all going to focus on the same accounts. And for me, this is where I differ to a lot of people is I can say, one of the markets we're working on at the moment, we have 20,000 accounts that we've picked, which we're working on. So it's not, I mean, it's definitely not ABM. We're not picking a few accounts, we're a big market. And the goal is that out of those 20,000, we expect, a percentage of them to move through the funnel this year and a percentage to move next year and so on and so forth.
Yeah, you mentioned ABM. I know that you have a very strong background in ABM. Do you practice ABM with Dealfront?
Not true ABM. So the reason we don't do it too much at Dealfront is because of the ARPAs are so low. Well, not so low, but they're too low to really make ABM work. So we do more of like one-to-many approach. So we do bring people through the funnel, and once we've identified them and they're showing the right level of intent, then we do run them in ABM campaigns. But like true ABM, like your one-to-one approach or one-to-few, we don't run a Dealfront.
I'm very curious, what is true ABM? What it looks like?
Yeah, it's like I always joke about the ABM police. I think so. For me, if you like ABM is like a strategy, right? But if you actually just break down the words, it's account based, marketing, which I'm doing with my 20,000 accounts. I'm just doing it, in a programmatic way. So for me, we do programmatic ABM, or programmatic demand generation would probably be what most people would call it. I think if you want to get into proper ABM, it's way more like human-led, personal. I want to be taking an account. It's probably a 12 plus month sales cycle where I know I need to warm this account up. We're going to go through a proof of concept. There's going to be 10 buyers on their end that are involved. I need to not only get the lead in, but then I need to expand, like help that person sell internally. And when I've done this in the past, that's actually been where the success has come from. Like the first lead's normally quite easy, but you start helping them. They start telling you, okay, we need to get such and such in finance and this person in security. We need to get them on board. So then you start marketing to a lot more people. And for me, that's like true ABM. But to go into that level, I think, people say you can do it at like a 30K ARPA, but I think you need to be in like the hundreds of thousands deal size for it to really be warranted.
Yeah. In our company, Matcher, this is exactly what we do. We build long-term relationships with our potential clients, where the buying cycle is 6-12 months, sometimes even more. Yeah. So we organize in person and various online events. We build these relationships very long term, and this approach in the long run is really great.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is, for me, what you're saying there is like you become the authority figure to that company, and they know that you're the expert in this. So again, when I was at Ring Central, we ran a retail ABM campaign, and we started broad in the sense we had like 100 companies on our list. We invited all of them to an event, but there was like 3 there that we wanted to sell to in the next 6 months. And, we were already nurturing them. We were already going through the process. And I think that's the thing. It's a lot more work, but the results are there if you follow it through. When like the style we do, as I say, it's more programmatic. So we're trying to do the same principles, but at scale. So it's not going to be as personalized. It's not going to be as one-on-one, but hopefully we can take all the good stuff from an ABM campaign and run it through the systems we have.
When you say programmatic, you mean different kinds of targeted ads for different groups of prospects?
Yeah, more programmatic in the sense, again, if I take my 20,000 companies, so first of all, you've got your 20,000 cold companies, and I'm going to set a certain level of content to them, some certain kind of advert, like an awareness campaign. Then when they start coming on the website, obviously I see they're on the website, I've got the trigger set up, they automatically move into the next level of the campaign, which is now we're going to build a little bit more trust. We're talking about Dealfront a little bit more. Then once they engage with that content or they come back on the website, we've got different criteria. Let's say they come on the website and they interact with the pricing page. It's like, okay, now you're in the next level of campaign. This one triggers like the sales sequences, and the sales guys are starting to reach out now and do their work. So it's all set up that it's automated, that once something happens, the next thing happens. And as I said, the process is kind of how you run ABM. It's just at a much larger scale.
This is really great, and it can be fully automated, right?
Yeah, it really can. And honestly, I think it's getting more and more, obviously, with AI coming out. There's so much more you can do, so much more research you can find. The context you can add now into an email or into your outreach is far greater than it ever has been. So even that can be automated, that the scripts are being sent over to your reps and all they've got to do is proofread it and send it.
And it's interesting, at which point do human start performing their actions in this funnel? I mean, you have these 20,000 accounts, they interact with your content and so on, and they move to the bottom of the funnel, where you start pick these leads manually and interact with them in some way.
Yeah, there'll be the point that we're scoring them as they go through the website. So again, because of having lead feeder, if they've looked at certain pages or they've been on a certain amount of time, like we would have a scoring that if there's been 5 people from the same company have visited the website in the period of, let's say, 6 weeks, then there's definitely an interest there. And then those companies will just get pinged over via Slack to an SDR channel. The SDRs start doing their work on LinkedIn and doing the outreach part. So I think it's a case of setting your categories. I've done this in the past, and we've said, okay, if they're on the website twice in a week, let's chase them down. I've done it. I think it depends on how many people you've got as well. But at the moment, we wait for them to be pretty warm. We are more inbound company. We kind of overlay. We're more like the all-bound, where we overlay inbound and outbound together versus this true outbound motion. So I think what we're doing is like, let's get them quite far down the funnel and then we'll start the outreach, but more like personalized outreach then.
Yeah, so there is no like single formula for this criteria, right? So it depends on resources, on how you feel with your audience right now, right?
Yeah, I would start looser and then scale it back. Like someone told me this with lead scoring in the past. That if you do lead scoring well, then you should be able to get to 40% of your leads to convert into opportunities. And that was always, the criteria. But the advice was start at 20% and then add in some more levers to make it harder and harder and harder until you get to 40%. And I think it's the same here. Like I would recommend, if somebody's visited the website, they've looked at the pricing page, once, and they've been on the website twice, then mark it as hot to start with. But you'll probably find that you've got quite a lot of people doing that. So then you want to increase it a little bit more. Maybe they need to look at the pricing page twice, or they need to visit the website 4 times. And just play around with those levels.
Yeah. Cool approach. I love it. I love
Yeah, and
and
then the reason I've always loved it is then you can get into like how can we get more traffic to the website, which kind of goes against everything I've been saying, but it's like just get the volume of people on the website. Because
Mhm.
the more people that come on, the more people you identify, and the more people that start going through these stages. So, you kind of care less about am I driving. You still want to drive people from your market, but the volume helps. So that's why we, instead of doing, the 1,000-person list, it's like let's target 20,000. And if we can get them all on and, across the course of 6 months, they're all doing different things on our website, we're learning an awful lot about them.
Yeah, great. And in terms of using AI, what kind of tools do you use? Maybe combinations of tools, different agents, and so on.
We have just launched an AI feature, which is definitely being used. And the reason I won't do too much of a plug, but the reason it's cool is because we can use the AI to help us create targeted lists. So if there's something really niche that we need to know about somebody or a company that we want to sell to, we can use AI to actually create the list. So instead of having to filter it down by company size, revenue, and all those things, we're able to say something way more unique, like, I don't know, are they hiring this kind of driver in Germany? If we're looking for lorry drivers, for instance. So that's one that we use. I personally and then like the product marketing team are using obviously ChatGPT on a regular, just to make sure for all of our research, all of our market analysis and advert creation, we're using ChatGPT and then we bring it in manually. Honestly, at the moment, I think the most we're using AI is in content production. So
Mhm.
ad creatives, uh, podcasts, creating,
Yeah,
chopping
yeah,
up
yeah,
the podcast into shareable links and all those kind of things is
yeah.
really where we're using it.
It's like having a content writer who doesn't sleep, who doesn't complain, and charge $20 per month.
Yeah, yeah. It's a bit crazy, right? What you can actually do.
Yeah.
And what's even crazier is how quickly we've got used to it. 2 years of using ChatGPT, and it's like I expect
It's
it to be better and better constantly.
yeah. And how big is your marketing team? How it's structured? I'm curious about this.
We are about 15 at the moment.
Mhm.
So we're structured like we've got the product marketing team, which is more focused on the market research, how
Mhm.
we message the product and position the product, how we release new features. Then we have a growth marketing team, which kind of overlay with the product marketing team and kind of overlay with customer marketing. So what they're doing is looking at once somebody signed up to being a customer, how can we get them onboarded in the product? We have the PLG motion, so how can we get them onboarded? How can we get them using the product, finding the most amount of value out of it? Then we have our normal performance guys, so running all the adverts, demand gen campaigns, things like
Mhm.
that. Content team, we have split out into like your writers,
Mhm.
web and SEO, and then we have a videographer. So quite lucky to
Mhm.
have that in house. And then we have Deepak on the community side, which is he's out there finding us podcasts to be on. Funny enough,
Yeah. He
finding us
found me.
people.
He
Yeah,
found me.
finding people to promote us and work with us, and yeah, that's a really fun one actually. Like the community, I know a lot of people have been looking at it, and it's definitely one which talking about this whole brand piece. It's not easy to show that there's an ROI, but there's a lot more people speaking about us because Deepak's out there doing his work
Yeah.
than there would be if he wasn't doing it. So it's one of those ones where we kind of got to go, yeah, this is definitely working. Let's not worry too much about proving it.
Yeah. Sam, what inspires you about marketing?
I think I I love these like patterns, It's like I love the things that are hidden, between the spreadsheets. Like,
Mhm.
okay, we ran this campaign on Facebook, and wow, look at what happened to branded PPC. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how can we connect these dots up? I really enjoy that part. I like the creativity, but I've always enjoyed like doing something, testing something, and then analyzing how it worked. And the more experience I've gained, the more I've realized to look, past the one channel and look at the other channels and the market and what the impact could have been across the entire funnel. So, yeah, that's the bit that I enjoy the most for sure.
And you are very data-driven marketer, right?
Yeah, I was baptized by fire when I joined Ring Central, being a SaaS scale up. It was all numbers, 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 and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
both of all, it was my first SaaS company. Um, so there was lots of acronyms being thrown around, which I'd never ever heard
Mm-hmm.
of. But
Mm-hmm.
secondly, everyone in the business knew their numbers. So our COO at the time, Dave Sipes, he had run marketing companies. He knew marketing back to front. And if you didn't know your numbers, you weren't listened to. Like an example is he could come to anybody in the business and be like, "How many visitors on the website today?" And he'd expect you to know the answer. So
Mm-hmm.
the discipline, even though at the time it felt uncomfortable, is created this discipline that like we really do leverage the data, make sure we understand what it's telling us, analyze it, find those hidden stories, and then build from there.
And returning to topic that we started in the beginning, how we as a marketers can shift this narrative that we need to drive results right here, right now, instead of we can move a little bit broader.
Mm-hmm. I think we need to reclaim the market. As there's like I said this in a presentation a little while ago. Marketing starts with market. So we are meant to be owning the market. We're meant to be the ones that are saying, this is where we're going to sell. This is where we're going to be successful. I think we need to start doing that again. And once we get back of like, we own the market, we declare where we're going to be successful, then it allows you to do, as I said before, like focus on that long-term plan of this is our market. This is currently the market awareness here. We need to get this up by 2% this year, 2% next year. And this is how we're going to do it. And if you can start having these conversations, I mean, in my budget spreadsheet, I do have it split by like not short term, long term, but it's kind of like brand building, media activation, topics like that. So one, I can start showing that I'm not investing loads of money into the brand, but two, I can start having a conversation with a CFO of, this money I'm spending now in Q2 is hopefully going to impact Q4. And it's a little bit longer term. So moving through of like making sure the plan is connected with the revenue plan and showing how the longer term investments are going to improve things further down the funnel.
Yeah, yeah.
Really,
Great approach. Love it. And one more question: how do you collaborate with sales team within your company? Who drives, I would say, the main strategy where we go, what we do? So marketing is leading, or sales is leading, and marketing more on the support side. What it looks like in your case?
it's I think it's a collaboration. Sales are the voice of the market. They're out there, they hear the things, they know what's going on. So for me, the way we collaborate is to constantly get feedback from them. We have bi-weekly calls. I do all my forecasting calls with the VP of sales. So we're always hearing. I do think this is one thing, just side note, but it's one thing that has got lost from being remote is it used to be really nice, like being sat in the office next to sales and you could hear exactly what was going on. So I think now what we have to do as marketing teams is find ways to get that information. So we've got the call transcripts being recorded and information from there. We have our bi-weekly calls with sales. We're asking, how's this content resonating? Are people looking at this, etc., etc. We're always asking for market trends. If like in Germany at the moment, there's been political issues. How's that impacting things? Are they hearing like a deal stalling? And what I would say is you can't push everything onto sales. You've got to work with them. They know a lot as well. They may not know exactly how to go to market from a marketing lens, but they're going to understand, especially the ICs, they're going to understand what the changes are in the market, how people are talking about our solution, whether it's resonating, whether this new positioning we've put out is really working, or if people don't understand it. And if you can get that collaboration going really well, that's when you'll excel for sure.
Yeah, how I collaborate with sales team. Recently, I asked our head of sales to record. So he attended one of the events that we organized, and I asked him to record conversations that he had with people. Of course, so they knew about this, and when they spoke, they had predefined topics of conversations, and I just asked if people will be don't if they don't mind about this, so please do these audio recordings for me, just to understand what happens there. And he actually did. People were absolutely okay with this, and I received so many insights for the content creation. So it was great practice. I definitely want to continue it.
Yeah, I think that, again, as I say, that sales are talking to our prospects day in, day out. They know what they're looking for, and if you can tap into that and really use it, like it's so beneficial.
Yeah. Sam, thanks a lot for joining me in today's episode. What's the best way for our listeners to connect with you?
I'm all about LinkedIn. So yeah, come and hunt me down on LinkedIn. Send me a message. Happy to chat.
Great. Sam, thank you for joining me today, and bye-bye.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate it.
Winning is crazy. Your opportunity.